Hey book nerds, welcome to my channel. I'm just gonna stop saying that I don't do book hauls that often because clearly I'm just jinxing myself into buying more books. Today I have a massive book haul for you. I think there's 27, 28 books, which is weird because I'm pretty sure that was what is in my non-fiction book haul, or my unhaul, something around that. But yeah, so these are going to be divided into categories. There's going to be second-hand books that I bought myself first, then there's going to be books that I got given for Christmas, then it's just going to be other books that I bought myself because I buy a lot of books. So without any further ado, I'm just going to start doing these because there's going to be lots of them. And the first book is Cell by Stephen King. I've been meaning to read this for absolutely ages. This is about there's like a virus that gets released through cell phones, and the main character's racing against time to reach his son before he answers his cell phone. I'm not really sure, to be honest, what it's about beyond that, but it's A, Stephen King, and B, my friend who isn't even into Stephen King has read this and said that it was absolutely amazing, so I'm gonna read it as well. It's got this beautiful orange cover that matches my other Stephen King books, which I'm super happy about because my goal is to get them all on these covers. And orange is my favourite colour, so it makes me really happy to look at. The next book is another Stephen King one, and that is Everything's Eventual. This is a collection of short stories. It's one of the few short story collections I haven't read by Stephen King. It's absolutely massive. I mean, this is a huge book. I will get round to it eventually. I'm not sure when, but I do really love Stephen King's short stories. I really enjoy reading them, and I'm glad that I've got this collection to add to my other ones. The next book I'm not sure how I feel about, and that is The Monogram Murders by Sophie Hannah. This is in such good condition that I couldn't not buy it. Like, there's some yellowing, but that doesn't really bother me. This is basically a continuation of Agatha Christie's Poirot series, written by someone who's not Agatha Christie. I was going to avoid these books like the plague because, as far as I'm aware, there's only been 2 of them published, and I think they plan to do a whole series of them, and the fact that they haven't published more implies to me that they didn't do very well or they weren't very well received. But I saw this and I thought I'd pick it up and I thought I'd give it a go. I'm tentative because I love Poirot and I love Agatha Christie's Poirot, but I'm hoping that I'll really enjoy this, and we shall see. Next ones I'm just going to hold up really quickly. So, there is a book series from the 90s called Point Horror, and these were basically for teenagers. They were like what you read when you're too old for Goosebumps, but not old enough for Stephen King. And for some reason I really love these. I've collected these since I was about 10. You can get them secondhand. There was a period where they were in charity shops absolutely everywhere, and that's when my collection began, but now it's kind of grown out of that phase because people are too old to donate them. But I shop on an online secondhand bookshop called World of Books, and I never thought to look for them on there, but they have pretty much all of the ones that I don't have, so I did control myself. Originally I had about £50 worth of these books in my cart, and I got it down to like 20, which I'm really happy about. But I am planning to do a series on my channel where I read through all of these and I do like reviews of them because they're really enjoyable. Like, they're insane. Some of them are really actually genuinely good. Some of them are just so insane that it's crazy, and they're all full of horror cliches. But there's just something about them that I love, and I think people who love horror will love these. So yeah, so I'm not going to go through what each one's about, I'll just hold it up. We have The Homecoming. The covers should give you an idea of what the books are like because you can see they're all very dramatic. The Stalker, Body, The Watcher, The Bride, Amnesia, Waitress, Sweet 16, Spring Break, and finally the one I'm most excited for, 13 More Tales of Horror. I've got about 3 copies of 13 Tales of Horror because my mum couldn't remember which ones I already had, and she always buys them for me if she sees them because she knows how much I love them. My partner also does the same, and the 13 Tales of Horror is quite common to find in bookshops, so I think I've got like 3 physical copies of that somewhere. But I've never ever seen the sequel, so I'm super happy to have the sequel finally to go with my 3 copies of the first one. But yeah, basically the plots of all of them are pretty much what the titles imply. They're like thriller light for kids, but not for kids, for teenagers. But I love them. That's all I'm going to say about them for now. Now we are on to the books that I got given for Christmas, and there's only 3 of them. Most people don't buy me books because I read them so quickly that my Goodreads page usually isn't updated, and so it's a bit of a risk to get me books because I might have already read them. But this one was from my brother, and I did request it, and I'm very happy that I have it, and it is A Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney. This is essentially described as Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Alice in Wonderland, which, to me, I don't understand how I can not love it from that description. It's been super hyped up at the moment on BookTube, but I think there's a few more mixed reviews now. But to be honest, I think I'm going to love it. This is the UK cover, which I want to show off because most people only see the American one, and I really like the UK cover. I had no idea what it looked like, but it's got these gorgeous roses that go around the spine, and I love it. I can't wait to read this. I'm hoping to read it really quickly. The next 2 are both from my partner, and I have not heard of either of them. They managed to buy me books that I've never heard of, which is super cool. And it is The Girl in the Window by Penny Jolson and The Price Guide to the Occult by Leslie Walton. So, Girl in the Window is a young adult thriller. It is about a girl who looks out her window and watches people, and one day she sees something and no one believes that she's seen it. Pretty standard thriller setup, but apparently this author's really good. My partner mentioned that they'd seen or read something about this author that made them pick this up, so I trust their judgment. I'm hoping I really love this because young adult thrillers can be a bit hit and miss, but this is super short, so I'm hoping to get to it this month. The next one I haven't heard of either, but I think this author is the same one who did the Strange and Beautiful Sorrow of Ava Lavender, whatever that book is called, the one that everyone was talking about for ages. This is a fantasy book, which they picked up for me because I was doing the Fall Into Fantasy readathon at the time, and I was talking about how much I was enjoying all these fantasy books and how I don't have enough fantasy books to read, so they got me this, which is super sweet. This sounds super interesting. It's about a family that have been cursed by a witch, and then they find this spell book which might free them from the curse, but it says there's a price to every spell that they make, and they're going to have to make a sacrifice. And yeah, I don't really know much about this. The cover is gorgeous. It's got this little metallic red, and I should read this February-March time, hopefully. And yeah, I'll see if I like it. So we're now into books that I bought myself. The first one I'm super hyped for, and I can't believe I haven't read yet because I really wanted to read it in December and I just ran out of time. That is An Unwanted Guest by Shari Lapina. This is a signed copy. It cost me £6, which is ridiculous. That's so cheap. I've got the signature there. But this is about a group of people who go to stay in a hotel, and there is a blizzard that shuts them out and cuts them off from the outside world. And they think everything's going to be fine because they've got food, they've got warmth, it's alright. And then they start getting murdered, and this just sounds great. It gives me really strong Agatha Christie vibes, which is always a good thing. I'm hoping to read it this month, and I'm really hoping that'll be a good read because I'm quite excited for this, and I really don't want to be disappointed by it. Another book that I don't want to be disappointed by is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This I could not believe. I got this for £7, and it's a signed copy. And I got it from Forbidden Planet. I don't know if that exists in America, but in the UK it is a comic book shop, and there's a massive one in Newcastle, which I didn't realise, but the entire second floor is dedicated to books and comic books, but they have a massive book section, and I can't believe that the entire time I lived in Newcastle I never spent more time in the book section because they're all brand new books They are much cheaper than Waterstones, and they're all horror, sci-fi, fantasy books, which is what I predominantly read apart from thrillers. So I need to go back there next time I visit my partner, because it's lucky that I only bought this one book, to be honest. There were so many in there that I could have bought. But this is beautiful. I really like this cover. This is a sci-fi, and it's a sci-fi murder mystery. It's about a detective or investigator who is reliving the same day that this woman got murdered, and they're reliving the same day again and again in a different body of the person who was there, so a different suspect in the case, if you like. I've heard that this is complicated, but I am hoping that I'll really enjoy it. It sounds definitely like it's my type of thing, and again, I don't really see how I couldn't like it, so fingers crossed. So the rest of these books I all got from my workplace, which, if you don't know, I work in a discount bookshop in the UK, and I also get my staff discount, so these books are insanely cheap, and that's why I buy so many of them. But the first lot are all thrillers, and then there's some non-fiction and stuff like that. But the first one is The Other Couple by Sarah J. Norton. This is about a couple who have gone on some kind of, or they've gone through some kind of trauma, and they're on the honeymoon, and then paradise turns into hell, is what it says on the back. So I don't really know much about it, but it sounds good. This is a fairly new one, I think, and it was only £1 because it was in our sale, so I am excited to read that. The next book is Grist Mill Road by Christopher J. Yates. This sounds really intriguing from the blurb. It is about, there were these 3 people, and when they were teenagers or children, one of the boys tied up the girl and threatened her with a gun. It says, years later, they meet again as adults, and then they have to work through whatever happened after this boy tied this girl to a tree and threatened her with a gun. It sounds so good. It sounds really mysterious. The next book has a standard thriller / TV show premise. I've definitely heard this one used before, but I thought it looked really intriguing, and that is The Girl Who Came Back by Kerry Wilkinson. This is about a child went missing, a young girl went missing, and then years later someone claiming to be that young girl has come back into the mother's life, and no one else but the mother thinks that it is this girl. I believe that was the premise of a TV show recently, because my mum told me about it, like The Missing or something like that, but I've never seen it. I know this plot has been used before in other thrillers, but I really like the look of the cover. I think I've read other stuff by Kerry Wilkinson and liked it, and hopefully it'll be a really good read. The next book is Under My Skin by Lisa Unger. This is about a woman whose husband was murdered. She is now self-medicating and fueled by grief, and she thinks she's being followed by someone, and she starts to think that maybe her husband wasn't who he said he was, and that the problem is because she's taking all the medication, no one else believes her. Again, pretty standard thriller premise. This cover is gorgeous though. I love this cover, and yeah, I just bought it because I like thrillers. The next book I'm also super excited for, and that is One Way by S.J. Morden. This is a sci-fi thriller, which is really cool. I like Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I'm glad that there seems to be more sci-fi thrillers, because I haven't actually heard of that many, and it seems like such a cool way to make the thriller concept more unique. But anyway, this is about a bunch of convicts who get sent to Mars. Yes, they get sent to Mars to build the first colony, and they basically have no choice in this. It's either they stay in prison forever or they get to go to this colony, and then once the colony starts, people start getting murdered. The problem is they're all convicts who were convicted of murder in the past, so it could be any of them. I'm excited by the premise. I hope it's done well, and yeah, I need to read more sci-fi thrillers, because it's a cool way, like I said, to make thrillers more unique. The next book is Dark House by Helen Pfeiffer. This is about a old house which used to be an insane asylum, and I think it was an insane asylum for children. There was some kind of dark thing that happened in the past and no one knows what it was, but in the present, people who worked at the asylum have started being murdered, and the detective is basically investigating and trying to find out what happened all those years ago. It sounds interesting. I'm hoping that it won't go too weird on the mental health stuff, because I was a psychology student, I did clinical psychology. I don't like it when thrillers use psychological elements badly, but with any luck this will be one of the ones that does it well and I'll really enjoy it. Final thriller of this stack, we are getting through them. It is Did You See Melody by Sophie Hannah. This is about a woman who sees a girl in a hotel room, like she accidentally goes to the wrong hotel room and she sees this girl with a man, and then it turns out that the girl she saw has gone missing and is presumed dead, and she's got to decide now what to do because she saw this girl alive. Again, not the most unique concept for a thriller. I've definitely read at least one of the blurb with the same premise, but Sophie Hannah is really famous in the thriller world. I know she's quite a popular author, and I'm hoping this will be a really good read. So the rest of these are all non-fiction, so I'm just going to go through them super quickly because we need to get through this pile. We have The Philosophy of Alice in Wonderland. This is really cool. This author, this editor is William Irwin. He's done a whole series of books which is pop culture, and there's ones with psychology and there's one with philosophy, and it's basically a bunch of scholars writing articles about this fictional work, applying academic theories to it. I've got the Batman and psychology one, which I love. I've got the Watchmen and philosophy one, which I also love. I've got the Game of Thrones one, which I haven't read yet, and I bought this one because I love Alice in Wonderland. This actually wasn't from my workplace, I got it second hand, so it's only £4. I'm not sure how I feel about philosophy, but I'm hoping, I think applying philosophy to Alice in Wonderland is super interesting as an idea, and I'm hoping I'll find this book super interesting. Next one I just got on sale. It is How to Think Like Sherlock Holmes. It's a bunch of logic puzzles, riddles, that type of thing. I love going through these. I love trying to solve these kinds of things. It was cheap, so I bought it. Next one, if you watched my non-fiction book haul, you're not going to be surprised by at all, but you will probably be saddened by, and that is Unsolved Conspiracies. I got the other ones of these, which are Unsolved Crimes, Unsolved Science. I got this one basically to match the other ones on my shelves. I am interested in conspiracy theories, but I've got a couple of books about conspiracy theories that I haven't read yet. But I couldn't not get it. It matches the other ones. Like, there's no other excuse. Next up we have a book I'm super interested to read, and that is The Ultimate Horror Movie Guide. This is really cool. I've already flipped through this a bit. It goes through era by era and talks about influential horror movies. I adore horror as a genre. I don't like to watch a lot of horror movies, but I love learning about horror movies, and I find them super interesting. So I'm really intrigued to learn more about the history of horror movies, and yeah. Next one is another book that I probably shouldn't have bought because I have similar books that I haven't read yet, but that is How the Body Works. This is just a really simple biology guide. I used to be really good at biology. I've forgotten a lot of what I learnt and I would like to relearn it, so this is just for me to flick through, learn more about the human body, and it will also be important for my psychology career because biology and psychology, the influence of the body and chemicals in the body on the mind is a huge part of psychology, and it's important that I know that kind of thing. And the final book is the story of Now Music in 100 Artists, or now that's what I call Music in 100 Artists. So this is a series of albums. Again, I don't think they get released in America, but they get released in the UK, and it's basically just collections of the top 20. I used to listen to them when I was younger. I don't listen to them anymore, but I have a strong interest in current music in terms of, I guess, like the history of current music, if that makes sense. So for example, Todd in the Shadows is one of my favourite YouTubers because he just talks about really interesting things about the artists, and this is basically like what he talks about in book form. So it goes through the albums and influential tracks, and I wasn't sure whether to buy this or not, but I found myself reading it a lot when I was at work on the shop floor with nothing to do, and I decided to just buy it because, to be honest, it is something I'm really interested in and it's something I'd like to learn more about. So that is all the books that I have hauled. I'm not going to hold them up, they're too many, I'm afraid. They're really heavy. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a thumbs up if you did, it helps me out massively. Let me know if you've read any of these. Also let me know which ones you're most excited for me to read, because while I'm going to pick books to read that I want to read, it's nice to know that other people are interested in what I read for BookTube. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.